In today's video, I'm going to be drawing a simple cloud using Procreate on the iPad. Stick around. So we're creating a drawing here on the Procreate program. This is on the iPad, and we're going to select a canvas here. This is just starting out with a basic canvas. You can think of it as a piece of paper. And Procreate is built, if you're familiar with Photoshop, it's built similar to that in that you can create layers. If you're not familiar with these digital programs, think of layers as transparent pieces of paper. And I've set the background, I've set this paper to a neutral gray because we're going to be drawing in black pencil and combining white pencil with that. So we've got the transparency of the paper underneath. We're going to name that layer. It's a good habit to get into. So this is just a gray layer. Think of that as a gray surface, gray piece of paper. We're creating another layer over it, and imagine putting a tracing paper over that layer. So we're not going to be affecting the layer with the gray color. We're just going to be creating a new layer that we're going to be drawing onto. If you can see, I'm drawing here. Think of a cloud as a three-dimensional object. So let's use a cube in this example. Think of the cloud as a floating cube. Of course, it's not the shape of a cube, but we're just going to imagine that for the intents and purposes of this tutorial. So imagine a light source, the sun, over in the upper right-hand corner, hitting the cube. It's going to affect the parts of the cube or a cloud that would be hitting those surfaces of the sunlight. And I'm adding the darker colors, and I just changed the pencil setting to light color, almost pure white. And this is just to demonstrate where the light source might be hitting that cube. And so that's the basic drawing of a cube to give you a sense of where the light and the shadow are. If you want to draw and have your drawings not look as much like cartoon, but give them a little more sense of realism, where they feel almost like they're three-dimensional. So I've just got this layer of that, the cube. I'm putting another transparency over that in the layer, and that's actually going to be the cloud drawing. I've got this set as a 6B pencil. You can change this to anything you would like. But in these demonstrations, we're going to stick with grayscale. We're not going to adjust any colors in this really. And it's as if you have your pencils at home, or if you've got preferably charcoal pencil and a white charcoal pencil, also called a white pastel pencil. Charcoal and white pastel can blend really well. I use General's charcoal pencil, and I have General's white pastel pencil, or sometimes they're referred to as white charcoal. So I was working off of a very basic image of a cloud. You know, we can guess at how a cloud is going to look, but sometimes it's better to use just a rough reference of a cloud, something similar that you want to create. You can take a photo of a cloud that you see, or you can just practice on one. You know, clouds shift all the time. They're never going to look identical. Just drawing through this, the Apple Pencil that I'm using here on the iPad through this Procreate program is touch sensitive. So I'm using very light pencil strokes, and that's why you're not seeing this come out so solidly. But that's very much, if you're not using a program and you're just drawing, it's good to get your basic shapes down just using very light pressure. You're just noticing the basic shapes. Think of it still here as this floating cube, and we're going to just start coloring in some of the shaded areas, darkening some of these areas that are in the shaded part of this cloud, using a little bit of a blending tool that often you can use when you're drawing. Sometimes people will use their fingers, but there are tools called blending stumps that will basically lightly smudge the imprint of the color that's on the paper, or the markings that are on the paper, just blending them in, giving them a slightly smoother overall look. So just using light pressure and I want this to be applicable for anyone that's going to use standard, charcoal pencils and paper. You're seeing me doing this here on the iPad, and if you have iPad and Procreate or a very similar program, that's great. You can keep all your projects, all your illustrations, and your practice on your drawing digital. That way you're not using any paper. You don't have to necessarily keep anything you're doing if you're just practicing and trying to get a good feel for this. If you don't have this program and you only are using paper and a traditional pencil or charcoal and white charcoal, don't feel like you have to go out and buy an iPad or an Apple Pencil if you are just wanting to explore this, unless you really want this to become something you're going to put a lot more time into. Or if you already have an iPad, you can download the Procreate program for approximately $10, and it's a one-time purchase. Once you own it, all the new updates will be installed automatically, as long as you keep your iPad software up to date. Procreate is constantly making improvements and changes, and they're adding on things. I'm trying to use the Procreate program to more closely resemble in a traditional way. There are so many techniques you can use in Procreate. It will automate some things for you. You can grab a color and fill in a shape. You can change the gradients of that. You can alter it in a lot of ways. But what I found is people tend to like, at least in my style, they tend to like what I do on traditional pencil and paper, and so I apply that overall look to what I'm creating digitally. Creating a cloud that's going to give a more realistic look. You could keep going with a drawing like this. You can continue putting as much time as you'd like in and trying to perfect to where it could look almost like a photograph of a cloud. Because it is a cloud, you can do whatever you would like. Just remember these basic principles of where the light and the shadow are hitting the cloud, but you don't have to duplicate a cloud 100%. This is just to give you a sense of building these values of light and dark. But we're keeping this pretty much as a pencil would be. There's a little flexibility on this, and I'm controlling the pressure and the angle that I'm actually drawing this on. And just continuing to add some of these highlights on the tops of this cloud, and let you watch along as the video continues playing, and you can see this progress in high speed. If you would like to see the slowed down real-time version, I'll now have those over at my Substack page for longer, more detailed video descriptions. I'll place a link below in the video description here. Check it out. Be sure to subscribe and like my channel here, and I will see you with another drawing tutorial very soon. Thanks for watching.